So welcome everybody. We're going to be spending some time this afternoon talking about some new guidance from the Jane Engelberg Memorial Fellowship Advisory Group related to helping all of you figure out how to develop a more successful JMF application. We spent quite a bit of time over the last 18 months looking at our processes, and we've implemented quite a few changes. And so we're looking at this webinar as an opportunity for those individuals who are looking at submitting to JEMF for the first time to gather the most up-to-date information, and for those who've already submitted a JEMF application and are considering reapplying to gather some information about how they can improve their application to keep it most consistent with our current guidelines. Today, you'll get a chance to hear from both myself. I'm Bev Yashar, and I am the 2019 chair of the JEMF Advisory Group. I'll be tag teaming with Sarah Kalia, who is our incoming chair in 2020 of the advisory group. And you'll get to hear from me for the first part of this webinar, and then Sarah will talk in the second half of the webinar. What we want to do in the webinar overall is just give you a little bit of background about JEMF and remind you why we do what we do. I talk a little bit about the awards that we support so you can see the scope of the work that we do. We're hoping to give you a chance to hear from some of our previous winners so that you can understand why they applied to the JEMF and what some of the value of receiving the award was for them professionally. And then we're going to give you quite a bit of information about what's new for the 2019 application. So to put our group in context, I want to just start with talking about what the JEMF mission is. And the purpose of the JEMF is to really encourage and fund initiatives by board-certified genetic counselors and genetic counselors in training. And our mission itself actually extends beyond the actual application. And so while the first bullet point that's on the slide highlights that the funding piece and that we provide support for scholarly endeavors, we really look at the support as extending beyond the specific research that we fund and think about it within the context that individuals who receive JEMF funding are now going to be looking at their support within the context of their professional development overall. And when we put those two pieces together, we're really looking to figure out how we can drive innovation within the field of genetic counseling through projects that are funded by JEMF. Want to remind you guys that our funding is available to genetic counselors who are members in good standing of the National Society of Genetic Counselors. And that when we now think about our strategic objectives overall, our objectives really are to promote professional development and to improve the practice of genetic counseling. You'll see up here some of the ways that we actually look at our mission within our strategic objectives. Sarah will give you some additional background and more details about the objectives later in the webinar. But some of the work that we did over the last 18 months was to really figure out where do we see that JEMF can play a big difference in the types of work that they fund. And so we've come up with these very specific objectives that we want everybody to be aware of because they're really important as you think about applying to JEMF for funding, that you think about how we look at ourselves within the broader context. And so our objectives are really to fund high quality and impactful research projects, and through that process to stimulate innovation in genetic counseling practice, delivery, and training. And out of that will come an opportunity to expand our understanding of who actually uses genetic counseling services. And then lastly, we're looking to foster and support new paths in professional growth of genetic counselors through their roles in the research setting. We believe that these types of research endeavors are essential to the profession, especially in light of how we continue to change and respond to the evolution of our practice in genetics, healthcare, and then the ethical and legal and social dimensions of genetic medicine. And so we want everybody to think about not just the details that we'll be talking about in their specific project, but how their work really relates to our larger strategic objectives, because we believe that it's critical that any proposed project holds the prospect of having significant impact beyond the personal interests or work setting of the applicant. So you may be wondering who makes these decisions about the funding or the funds that we'll be sharing as part of the JEMF award. Just to let you know, the members of the advisory group are full members of NSGC who are board certified. And those individuals who serve on the advisory group are selected based on their research experience and/or their experience with grant submission and review. Membership on the advisory group is a 5-year term. And during that five-year period, the advisory group members play a number of different roles. Obviously, in pursuit of our main objective, we review full member grant proposals and student research proposals. This is a process that occurs annually. And out of that review process, we determine who's going to be the recipient of the full member fellowship and who are going to be the recipients of the student research awards. In addition to paying attention to this very specific funding mechanism, we have the responsibility of monitoring on a quarterly basis the progress, budget, timeline, and outcomes of each funded full member project. And we do this until the project is complete, which is generally a 2-year cycle. Along the way, we are responsible for managing and distributing the funds of the JEMF award. And then finally, as you'll hear when Sarah tells you a little bit more about our new initiatives, we're also play a role in promoting mentoring of potential JEMF applicants and current awardees. And so we know that most people who are listening to this webinar are thinking about submitting an application. However, if you're one of those individuals who's just really interested in knowing more about the AG, we hope that you'll consider submitting an application to serve on the AG in the future. We normally put a call out in the fall of each year. So if I now turn to think about the JEMF annual awards in a little bit more detail, and as I highlighted in the content up to this point in time, we have 3 different awards that we provide. The one that I think that has the greatest visibility within our membership is the Full Member Award. The deadline for this award is generally early May. And these are awards that are meant to really drive research, scholarly endeavors, and professional development. One of the things that we're particularly excited about that's going to be new in the 2019 cycle, but in the 2020 cycle, is that we've been able to increase the amount of the award that is provided to that individual who wins it. And it will actually be increased to $90,000 over the 2-year period. Please take a look at our website to learn more information about the details related to the size of this award. In addition to the Full Member Award, we also provide Student Research Awards. The deadline for that is a little bit later in the year and occurs in June. We generally award 5 student projects, funds of up to $500, and this funding is meant to support their thesis work. The third award that is submitted by the JEMF Foundation is the Student Manuscript Award. As the slide details, the deadline for this award is in June of each year. It is an award that totals $250, and I want to highlight that any individual who previously applied for a Student Research Award is eligible for the Student Manuscript Award if they then went on to publish their research. For those of you who are listening to this webinar and are working with students, we hope that you'll make them aware of the fact that you don't only have to have been a winner of a Student Research Award to be eligible for the Student Manuscript Award. And we really believe that the Student Manuscript Award is a really important way to continue to build scholarship and research scholars out of the JEMF Foundation. So as you can tell, our goal here is really to get you to think about the different ways that the JEMF group can help you. And we want you to understand the impact of the award on individuals who have won it in the past. And we thought that the best way to do that would be to allow past winners to share their perspectives. So we're going to hear from Casey Reiser, our 2010 JEMF awardee. Casey won an award in the focus of trying to develop educational resources for genetic counseling students, practicing genetic counselors, and students in other health professions. Her focus was on using digital recordings of genetic counseling sessions by master genetic counselors.
I applied for the JEMF because there was a need for a genetic counseling-oriented psychosocial training tool, and the JEMF funding could make that happen. Receiving this award has impacted me on a professional and personal level in so many ways. On a professional level, I developed a skill set for leading a team and managing a project with multiple moving parts from inception through to completion and distribution. Knowing that I could do this and that the final outcome has made a difference increased my self-confidence to be a leader in genetic counseling education. On a personal level, I met and continue to meet amazing colleagues and develop what I think is a circle of lifelong friends.
So now I want to turn to the application itself. And as I said in the beginning of the webinar, there are a number of new areas that we'd like to highlight in our full member award. And what you're seeing here is the cover page of what will be the new application that will be available for those who are applying in 2020. And I want to remind you that the objective of the JEMF is to really stimulate innovation in genetic counseling practice, delivery, and training, and to expand our understanding of users of genetic counseling services. The areas that are highlighted on this slide are ones that Sarah's going to talk about in a little bit more detail after we walk through the actual application. But I want to highlight that the last paragraph on this slide points out that the JEMF AG considers a broad range of proposals. And we encourage you, as you're thinking about putting together a JEMF application, to contact the committee chair, which next year will be Sarah Kalia, to discuss your proposal in advance of the submission. We're not limiting ourselves to these areas, but we see these as a really good way of defining ways that we could meet our objectives. So if we turn to the application itself, pages in length, there are many details about it in the proposal guidelines, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in the next slide. But I'll point out that Appendix A through F really requires input from a number of different individuals. For those who've applied for funding elsewhere in their career, much of this will look familiar, including the importance of having a budget, having bio sketches, talking about additional funding, letters of support, and then the importance of doing an IRB or getting approval from your IRB if you need to. As Sarah will highlight, it takes a fair amount of time to pull a JEMF application together, and what's listed in Appendices B through F really require quite a bit of input, both from your collaborators and those who are responsible for budgeting issues within your institution. So we encourage you to look at this part of the application as early as you can in the process and make sure that you have all the key players in your institution aware of what you're going to need. Okay, so I'd like to turn to the proposal itself and some of the guidelines that are associated with it. You'll see that there are a number of new elements that we've highlighted for you with the word new. I think it'll be really important for those of you who are thinking of applying to pay close attention to these new content areas. They include both how we're asking you to lay out the goal and specific aims, how we're asking you to lay out your methods. And then as Sarah will talk about, we're actually asking you to think about consulting with an application advisor, building a mentorship team, and then thinking about an individual development plan. What I'd just like you to be aware of is that all this needs to be accomplished within the 15 pages of the application. And the actual guidelines that are available on the JEMF portion of the NSGC website give you very specific guidance on how much of the proposal, the final 15 pages, should be dedicated to sections 1 through 3, and then section 4 and 5 through 8. The bottom line is that the largest proportion of the proposal should really be dedicated to the methods. And so please take your time to look carefully at the new elements of the application and make sure that if you have already submitted an application in the past and you're planning on resubmitting it, that it is consistent with our new guidelines. Just to remind you is that when we as the AG are reviewing proposals, we're looking not just for compliance to these 8 different sections of the proposal itself, but we're really looking for great writing. And so please think about having other individuals, including those who are your application advisors or those who are part of your mentorship team. Please make sure to give them time to think about reviewing it so that they can really help you figure out how to make a compelling argument in writing for why this would be something that the JEMF advisory group would want to pay attention to. At this point in time, I'm now going to turn it over to Sarah Kalia, who, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be the incoming chair of the advisory group in 2020. And she's going to help you think about some other critical elements of a successful application to the JEMF.
Thanks, Bev. As part of the JEMF's 5-year strategic plan, the advisory group identified priorities for the types of grant applications that we'd like to receive. So priorities include projects that aim to develop innovative approaches and/or service delivery models for genetic counseling practice, improve access to genetic counseling among underserved populations, promote growth and competence in students and practicing genetic counselors, build a more diverse and inclusive workforce, or address an unmet need of a specific client population or populations. It may be helpful to indicate in your application which of these priorities your project addresses. And you'll notice that a wide variety of projects could fall under these categories, but also know that you're not limited to this list. We also encourage other creative and innovative ideas. One of the updates to the JEMF application this year is an increased emphasis on mentorship. We want to make sure that all applicants, regardless of their career stage or level of research experience, have a mentor network as part of their JEMF application and their JEMF project. We, as the advisory group, interviewed several previous awardees about the questions they had when they were applying, who helped them with their application, and what types of mentorship would be most helpful to applicants. And based on these interviews, we decided that all applicants should identify an application advisor to assist with the application development and project mentors for the study period. And in some cases, the same person may serve in both roles. The goal of having an application advisor and a project mentor is to enable all applicants to put together a high-quality application and make sure their projects have the necessary content expertise to be successful. A bit more information about each of these mentor roles. So the application advisor works with an individual applicant during the current application cycle or an upcoming application cycle, while the project mentors are content experts who provide mentorship during the project for a funded project. The application advisor can be a past member of the JEMF advisory group or a past JEMF full member award recipient. And we in the advisory group can help make a connection between you as an applicant and either a past advisory group member or a past awardee. Or if you'd like, you are welcome to identify and contact a potential application advisor and talk to them about whether they're willing to serve in this role. You can refer to the JEMF website, which lists previous AG members and previous awardees. And the role of the application advisor is to provide personalized mentorship for you as an applicant on the design of your study and development of your grant application. They can help you to tailor your research question and scope and specific aims to fit the JEMF budget and the 2-year project period, and provide guidance on developing your individual development plan and mentorship plan. They may also provide tips specific to applying for JEMF specifically. And those who are previous award winners may share the feedback that they receive from the advisory group on their application. And if your application is not funded in the current cycle, the application advisor can also review the advisory group's feedback with you and help you plan to reapply. The advisory group now requires project mentors also to be named in all JEMF applications. And this is based on years of experience with JEMF grants, over which time the advisory group observed that principal investigators or applicants who identify mentors for the project are more likely to achieve the project's aims and have a successful project. In your application, you'll specify project mentors who will provide mentorship and content expertise during your project if it is funded. The mentorship needs for your project will vary depending on the topic of your project and your own personal expertise and background. Common areas where mentors may be needed or considered are individuals with expertise in the methodology used in the project. For example, qualitative research, quantitative or statistics background, expertise in a particular database, or extensive experience with the patient population. And you should plan to specify your project mentors and their roles on your project in your JEMF application. We've discussed that mentorship is a big aspect of a JEMF application and a project. So how do you prepare for mentoring relationships? Before meeting with your application advisor, you'll want to review the JEMF application and guidelines and make a note of the sections where you need more guidance. Plan to discuss those sections, especially with your application advisor, and spend some time thinking about what are your project goals and how can mentors, project mentors, assist you in meeting those goals. You likely already have mentors in your networks who can help with certain aspects of your project, or who provide the type of mentorship that you might need on this project. So consider your existing community of mentors, your academic, career, educational, and peer mentors who you turn to regularly for career advice and support. And spend some time thinking about how an application advisor and project mentors could complement your existing mentor network. In what areas might you need additional guidance and mentorship? Shown here is a suggested timeline for putting together a JEMF application. The deadline is early May. So we recommend starting your application 3 to 6 months before the deadline, ideally in the late fall timeframe. We would recommend starting to plan your grant application. We'd suggest that in November, you contact the advisory group with preliminary ideas and a suggestion of a potential application advisor, or just to discuss who might be an appropriate application advisor. Starting around December, really get familiar with the JEMF application and guidelines, proposal guidelines. You'll want to, in this time frame, confirm who your application advisor will be, and with that person, start to discuss your research ideas, your professional development goals, and what needs you might have for mentors on the project, and who would be a good person to serve in those roles as your project mentors. In around the January timeframe, really start writing your application. And at this point, you'll want to think about confirming your project mentors and their roles, and then spend the next few months writing your grant and consulting with your application advisor approximately monthly, and your project mentors as needed. The project mentors you'll also, if your grant is funded, you'll also continue to communicate with throughout your project. And then by the May deadline, plan to submit your application. And so this is a suggested timeline. There may be situations in which developing a JEMF application takes less time if you've done related work in the past, or if you've already devoted a substantial amount of time to thinking through your aims and study design. So if you're watching this webinar and you think to yourself, I may not have this much time, it may be possible to assemble an application more quickly, but these are the steps that you will want to make sure you have enough time to execute. We'll now hear a testimonial from Julia Wynn, who is a JEMF full member awardee in 2016 for her project entitled Examining the Effects of Whole Exome Sequencing and Utility of Educational Videos to Augment Whole Exome Sequencing Patient Education.
If I had to give advice about people applying to the JEMF, so I think we never feel ready to do pretty much anything that we do. And so you're never going to feel ready to apply to the JEMF. You're never going to feel like you're where you're supposed to be in your career before you apply for funding. But we're the people that have the questions that are most pertinent to genetic counselors. And so we're the people that need to ask it. We're the people that need to put these studies together. And we can't do that without support and funding through the JEMF. And so chances are if you have a study question, other people have that question and someone's looking for you to answer it. And so I would really encourage people to be bold.
Thanks, Julia. We hope that this webinar has helped to give you a better understanding of the JEMF Full Member Award and how to approach the grant application and how to enhance your chances of success by allowing enough time to put together a strong application and working with an application advisor and identifying project mentors. Even if you're new to research, even if you're in a clinical role, you have the resources in your network to design a research study or a professional development project. All you need to get started is a research question or a professional development goal that interests you and a population to work with. And even if you aren't sure whether you'll be ready to submit in the current application cycle, it's not too early to talk with an application advisor and start to organize your ideas. The JEMF website shown here also includes more information about the topics we covered today, including the JEMF mission and strategic objectives, links to the Full Member Award application, and the guidelines. We encourage you to read these guidelines instructions thoroughly before beginning your application. The website also lists past JEMF awardees and past members of the JEMF advisory group. So if you're thinking of applying, even if your ideas are at an early stage, you may want to review these names to see if any of them might be a good fit for your application advisor. These are the 2019 members of the JEMF advisory group. We're here to help facilitate high quality applications from genetic counselors with any level of research experience. So please feel free to reach out to us with questions, and we can connect you with an application advisor to help you develop your ideas. Again, feel free to reach out to us with questions. You can reach all of the JEMF advisory group by emailing jemf@nsgc.org. And individual email addresses for Bev and myself are also listed here. We thank you for your time and hope that you'll consider contacting us and consider submitting a proposal to JEMF. Thank you.